What One Piece really represents about freedom. Picture this, a 17-year-old boy stands on a rickety wooden platform, seconds away from execution, and instead of begging for his life, he grins. His final words ignite a revolution that will span decades. My treasure, if you want it, you can have it. Find it. I left everything this world has to offer there. Those words from Gol D. Roger didn't just start the great pirate era, they crystallized what would become the most profound meditation on freedom ever told through manga. But here is what most people miss about One Piece. It is not really about pirates finding treasure. It's about something far more subversive, something that cuts to the very heart of what it means to be truly free in a world designed to cage you. 26 years later, Eiichiro Oda's masterpiece continues to unfold this intricate philosophy, and the deeper you dig, the more you realize that every arc, every character, every seemingly ridiculous power serves a greater purpose. The story isn't just entertaining us, it is teaching us how to recognize the invisible chains we wear and, more importantly, how to break them. The genius lies in how Oda presents freedom not as an abstract concept, but as something tangible, something worth fighting for, something that can be lost and reclaimed. Through Luffy's journey, we witness different manifestations of bondage and liberation, each more complex than the last. Take the very beginning. Luffy's first act of rebellion isn't against some grand tyranny, it's against Alvida, a relatively minor threat who terrorizes a small ship. But watch closely, Coby, the pink-haired boy cowering in fear, represents every person who has ever accepted their circumstances as unchangeable. When Luffy declares that Coby's dream of becoming a marine isn't stupid, he's not just being nice. He is performing a revolutionary act. He is giving someone permission to want more than their current reality allows. This pattern repeats throughout the East Blue Saga, but it evolves. In Orange Town, Luffy faces Buggy, a pirate who has turned his own crew into accessories for his ego. The townspeople hide in terror, accepting destruction as inevitable. But Luffy doesn't just defeat Buggy, he shows the townspeople that they don't have to live in fear. Freedom, Oda suggests, isn't just personal. It's something that spreads, something contagious. Then comes Syrup Village, where we meet Usopp, and suddenly the stakes shift. Here's a character who lies compulsively, who creates elaborate fantasies about his own importance. Traditional storytelling would frame this as a character flaw to overcome. But Oda does something brilliant. He shows us that Usopp's lies are actually a form of resistance against a reality that has been consistently cruel to him. His father left, his mother died, and he's been essentially raising himself in a village that sees him as a nuisance. His lies aren't just coping mechanisms, they're his refusal to accept limitation. When Klahadore reveals his true identity as Captain Kuro and his plan to destroy everything Usopp holds dear, we're not just watching a battle between pirates. We are watching a confrontation between someone who has chosen to reshape reality through imagination and someone who has chosen to reshape it through cold calculation and murder. Both are forms of rebellion against the status quo, but only one preserves the capacity for joy, for wonder, for the kind of freedom that doesn't require stepping on others. The Barity arc introduces us to Sanji, and here Oda's philosophy becomes even more sophisticated. Sanji is literally chained not by metal, but by debt, by gratitude, by love. Zeph saved his life, raised him, taught him everything he knows. How do you rebel against someone who gave you everything? How do you pursue freedom when freedom means abandoning the person you owe your existence to? The answer comes in the form of understanding that true love, the kind Zeph actually feels for Sanji, wants freedom for the beloved, not control over them. When Zeph finally tells Sanji to go, to pursue his dream of finding the All Blue, he's not just releasing his prot-G, he's demonstrating that real freedom often requires others to let us go, just as much as it requires us to be brave enough to leave. But it's in Arlong Park where Oda's meditation on freedom becomes genuinely profound. Nami's story isn't just about a girl trapped by a fishman's greed. It's about how oppression works in the real world, gradually, systematically, by making the oppressed complicit in their own subjugation. Nami believes she can buy her village's freedom. She believes that if she just works hard enough, steals enough, sacrifices enough of herself, she can solve the problem through the very system that created it. She's internalized her oppression so completely that she can't see any solution except more of the same. When she finally breaks down and begs Luffy for help, she's not just asking him to defeat Arlong. She's admitting that individual effort within a corrupt system isn't enough, that sometimes freedom requires collective action, requires other people to fight alongside you. And this is where Luffy becomes more than just a protagonist. He becomes a symbol of a particular kind of freedom, the freedom that doesn't seek to rule others, the freedom that multiplies rather than diminishes when shared. When he places his hat on Nami's head and declares war on Arlong, he's not just being heroic. He's demonstrating that true strength isn't about individual power, it is about the willingness to extend yourself for others without expecting anything in return. This philosophy gets tested and refined throughout the Grand Line. In Alabasta, we see how freedom can be manipulated, how people can be turned against each other by those who profit from conflict. Crocodile's plan succeeds not through brute force, but by convincing people that their neighbors are their enemies. He creates the conditions where freedom appears to require the destruction of others. But Luffy's solution isn't to defeat Crocodile through superior manipulation or strategy. Instead, he demonstrates that sometimes the most radical act is simple, direct honesty. When he tells Vivi that people die in wars, he's not being cruel, he's cutting through the comfortable lies that prevent real solutions. Sometimes freedom requires acknowledging hard truths that everyone else wants to avoid. Skypiea takes this further, showing us a conflict that has raged for centuries, where both sides have legitimate grievances and both sides have committed atrocities. Traditional storytelling would resolve this through compromise, through finding middle ground. But Oda does something more interesting. He shows us that some conflicts can only be resolved by changing the fundamental assumptions that created them. When Luffy rings the bell, he's not taking sides in the ancient conflict between Shandians and Skypians. He's demonstrating that some promises transcend politics, that some commitments are more important than being right. The bell doesn't solve the practical problems of coexistence, but it creates the emotional foundation that makes solutions possible. Water 7 and Enies Lobby represent the culmination of everything Oda has been building toward. Here, we see what happens when the very concept of justice becomes corrupted, when the systems meant to protect freedom become its greatest enemy. The world government's treatment of Robin reveals the ultimate truth about institutional power. It will always sacrifice the individual to preserve itself. Robin's "I want to live" isn't just a character moment, it's a philosophical declaration. She spent her entire life believing that her existence is a burden to others, that the world would be better off without her. She's internalized the world government's propaganda so completely that she's willing to die to protect the people she loves. But when the Straw Hats declare war on the entire world for her sake, they're not just saving one person. They're rejecting the fundamental premise that some people's lives matter less than others. This is what One Piece really represents about freedom. It's not something you can achieve alone. And it's not something you can achieve by accepting the rules of the system that oppresses you. True freedom requires community, requires the willingness to fight for others even when you gain nothing from their liberation. It requires recognizing that your freedom and everyone else's freedom are inextricably connected. And that 17-year-old boy who started it all, he understood this from the beginning. Roger's final words weren't just about treasure, they were an invitation to dream. To believe that the world contains more possibilities than the powers that be want us to imagine. The One Piece isn't just waiting to be found, it's waiting to be understood.